Where were we? We've now reached the third video in our Hazard Identification Games series, where our goal is to improve the way you perceive and recognize workplace hazards. Without wasting much time, let's move on to our next image. What kind of activity do we see in this image? It's a scene we're probably quite familiar with on our construction sites. A forklift is transferring a pipe from one point to another. So, what kind of hazards are present here? Your 10-second thinking time starts now. When transporting a long material like a pipe with a forklift, there are many potential hazards. If we start listing
Whoa,
them
careful
one by
there.
one, Hazard 1. The risk of the pipe losing balance
Watch
and
out.
falling to the ground while the forklift is in motion. Hazard 2. Even if the pipe extending far beyond the sides of the forklift is secured, it remains difficult for the operator to maintain full control. Therefore, there is a risk of one of the protruding ends striking personnel in the area. Hazard 3. Naturally, whenever equipment is operating in an area, one of the potential hazards that comes to mind is the risk of collision. In this image, that means the danger of the forklift striking personnel in the area while reversing. The hazards don't end here. Please share any other hazards you notice in the comments. We'd love to learn from your feedback. In our next image, we see a steel beam being lifted with the help of a winch. When it comes to lifting operations, countless hazards come to mind. Let's examine the image carefully and identify the hazards together. Your 10-second thinking time starts now. Hazard 1. Yes, whenever a lifting operation is taking place, we must always consider the risk of a dropped
Look
load.
out. It's
There
coming
can be
down.
many reasons for a load to fall. In this case, the danger of the steel beam falling to the ground from the crane hook. Hazard 2. In the image, we see a lifting operation. If the load weight, boom extension, or angle are not calculated correctly, there is a risk of the boom breaking or sustaining serious damage. Hazard 3. In any lifting operation, there is also the risk of the crane's outriggers being damaged or even collapsing. This can occur if the load shifts unexpectedly or if the operator handles the crane improperly, causing a sudden increase in the load on the outriggers. Hazard 4. If the load weight, boom extension, or boom angle exceed the crane's capacity, or if the operator makes incorrect maneuvers, there is a risk of the crane tipping over. Hazard 5. During the maneuver, the load suspended from the crane hook poses a risk of striking nearby personnel or equipment. Hazard 6. We carry out lifting activities using very useful equipment such as cranes. But isn't it also important that the parts of this equipment are well maintained and in good condition? Of course it is. Here, we're talking about the dangers of the crane's wire rope snapping or the hook breaking. Hazard 7. The danger zone in lifting operations is of critical importance. The area where the lifting activity takes place is one that contains multiple potential hazards. If we consider that this area is not barricaded, we cannot overlook the risk associated with this situation. As you can see, we've talked about many hazards, but I'm sure you've spotted even more. Please don't forget to mention additional hazards, such as weather conditions, in the comments. I'd really appreciate your input. Now let's move on to another image. The manual handling of a valve, meaning it's being lifted or moved by hand. It seems like a very simple task, doesn't it? Let's take a closer look together. Your 10-second thinking time starts now. Hazard 1. In our image, there are loose cables around the worker's feet. We can identify a tripping hazard here. Hazard 2. As you can see, the workers are not wearing work gloves. This points to the hazards associated with manual handling without proper hand protection. Hazard 3. You can probably tell that the valve in the image is quite heavy. Even attempting to lift such equipment manually poses the risk of back injuries or damage to other joints in the body. Hazard 4. The valve in the image is not only heavy but also not a stable object. We can also talk about the risks of pinch points and the valve tipping over.